Good evening and welcome back to Edge Radio. You're live with Pinti
And Mia?
and we are the conversation starter. If you're listening in via radio, you probably can't see that Mia and I are still adhering to the current restrictions that are in place by the Australian government. So we are coming to you in our separate houses. So thank you so much for joining us for our three-part special on COVID-19. Mia, COVID-19, the coronavirus, has impacted everybody around the world. And I think, fortunately for us, Australia has been quite lucky in comparison to the harder hit countries like Spain, Italy, the US. We've really been quite fortunate in the number of cases that we've had, and fingers crossed that so far we've seen kind of that everything that our government has put in place, the social distancing, the self-isolation, and people adapting to this new way of working from home. It's working. That, as far as we can tell, the curve is flattening and we are on this, hopefully the end is in sight. We don't quite know when that's going to be. They're relaxing the restrictions up on the mainland, so we're very fortunate, I think. How have you been coping during this?
Like you say, Pinti, I feel very grateful and we're very lucky in Tasmania, I think, and in Australia that we haven't been as affected as many other places. I guess the biggest impact for me has been the way I work, but I am grateful that I still have a job and I still have a means of employment, and I know that a lot of other people do. But it's certainly been an adjustment going from the office to working at home full time. Yeah, so that's something we'll talk about in a bit more detail.
That's what our episode is all about, is how the pandemic has affected everybody's work. I just wanted to share this thought with you. A family member shared this on a social media site, and it's from Share the Dignity, and it was basically outlining how we've all been impacted by this in different ways. So we're all in this storm, but every single one of us has been affected differently. And I think when it comes to work and people's financial status, and even to the way like schooling has changed now. So I think it's important to look at, although we're in this together, for some people it's been really difficult. I was trying to put a list together of just how many different categories there are of people who have been affected in so many different ways because of COVID-19. So we've got like our at-risk and in-demand frontline workers. We've also got our, again, high risk and in-demand essential workers. We've got people who've lost their jobs. People whose jobs have substantially changed. So like you, Mia, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but people who've had to transfer their work online. Lots of businesses have had to adapt to this new way of working, and also families who, if they're working from home, if they're fortunate to be working from home at this point in time, they're also having to homeschool their children. In terms of work and how the Australian government, Mia, we were speaking earlier about how you thought that the government's done a really good job in terms of financially supporting Australians. I know when it took a little bit, I think it took about a week or so after all these work restrictions were put in place, and I think I was a little bit skeptical that the government wasn't moving fast enough in terms of aiding financial support. So we had that banter a little while ago about it. But looking into it, the government came to the financial aid by releasing $17 billion to make sure that its citizens were taken care of. And that was so important because I think it was the 30th of March that the government put out all of these restrictions on essential workers, and therefore if your job was no longer seen as essential, crucial, then you need to stay home to stop the spread of coronavirus. The ABC reported that it was 780,000 jobs were lost in that first week of April following this news. So, Mia, you've got some more information there on the different types of stimulus packages that the government put out to financially help everyone.
Yeah. I mean, like you were saying, Pinty, I feel like our government did a good job in a rushed situation that was a situation no one would have planned for. So I do have sympathy for people who don't fit certain criteria to get certain payments. Last week we talked about international students are kind of a gap. I know that people that have worked for less than 12 months for a casual in a casual role were a gap for a while. But I mean, the government basically, it felt like from nowhere and so quickly created $130 billion JobKeeper package, which gave so many people and so many businesses peace of mind. I thought that was really impressive, and it certainly, I think, would have calmed a lot of people's nerves knowing that they were going to have some money coming in. The job seeker is also still available, and that's been boosted. So I think it's now 1,100 per payment that people are getting, whereas before that it was sort of closer to half of that. So they added an extra 550 for people that were already on that benefit, but also people now getting that benefit. So if you're just coming into job seeker because you don't qualify for job keeper, you still have a form of getting payment through that, even though it's a little bit less. So it's about $400 less a fortnight. There's still money that you're able to get. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about how some people who are getting JobKeeper are better off than they were when they were working. And they've been tweaking, and there's been a bit in the media in the last few days about how they're tweaking JobKeeper because they had, I guess, some very young people who are 16, 17-year-old people. Some of them were saying they were getting 10 times their normal wage by getting $1,500 a fortnight because they only worked a couple of shifts a fortnight. So they were getting a great windfall. And, I think while that's not the intention of it necessarily, the point of some of these packages are about stimulus rather than just keeping people afloat. So the government has acknowledged, and I think the people involved have acknowledged, that it's not a perfect solution and it's kind of a stopgap and that it will need reiteration. So there's going to be, they're saying 6.6 million people receiving JobKeeper, which is so many people. And I think that's a huge portion of the public sector. So I think it's, I was just reading 10.5 million Australians, which is 68% of working Australians have been forced into an employment change of some form, including people who are working from home. And 6.6 million are going to be on JobKeeper. So some of those will be people who are underemployed. Some of them will be people who are temporarily unemployed. But that's a huge portion. Like that's far above 50% of our private sector workforce, is my understanding. So that's a lot of people that are going to be on, I guess, like not sort of contributing to the economy directly for some time. And obviously private sector contribution is really important to keep the economy running. Scott Morrison has really been pushing this week to get people back to work. And he's been saying that the restrictions are costing the economy $4 billion a week. So, a week goes quickly. Yeah, $4 billion a week. So I guess the quicker they can get people back to work, the quicker they can find adaptive ways for people to be working again or working in a new way, the quicker they can get back and recoup that money that they're currently pumping out into keeping people financially safe and financially stable.
And I suppose it all comes down to making sure that we do that in the safest way possible. Because I think now that it's been several weeks, or hopefully, we've all been self isolating for several weeks now, people are getting quite anxious to return to normal, but there's also that worry that there's going to be a second wave.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing is safety. The number one thing is public health. everything else is what we're trying to work around, to make sure we can get our economy back up and running. And I think that's also so important for people's health and their livelihoods as well, and their mental health, that they can go out and interact and be part of society and work. So it'll be really great to, after the break, get to hear from some people who are adapting and see how work for them has been affected by coronavirus, and how that's changed the way they work or whether they can work. Welcome back to the Conversation Starter with Pinti and Mia on Edge Radio. We are doing a bit of a different thing at the moment. We're broadcasting from our houses, as you can see. And Pinti and I have been talking tonight about coronavirus and work, and how it's influenced different workplaces and employment for people. And we're so lucky today that we have some representatives from our health and fitness community in Tasmania who've come to talk to us about their experience at the moment and what they've been going through and how they've adapted to this whole new world that we're living in at the moment. So we've got Gabrielle May, if you want to give us a wave. Gabs is a personal trainer. She's got over 20,000 followers, and she's also a mum of 5, which is pretty amazing. So that's a lot to be going on at the same time. We've got Nikki Long. Nikki, if you want to give us a wave. So Nikki is the owner of FitEx. She's also the owner of Pinnacle Event Management and the event manager of the Mother's Day Classic. And that's really exciting, what I think you're doing in that space this year. So that's something that I want to ask you about. And we've also got Beck Burns and Lou Robertson, who are sisters and best friends, and a little guest star who's here with us as well. Super cute. And Beck and Lou are the owners of BroFit. So you've got a gym. We can see your gym in the background. That's very exciting. But I understand at the moment the gym is closed, and today you're in having a clean. So a little bit different, unusual times for everyone. I just had some questions for all of you, and wanting to know how you've adapted, what's been going on. Gabby, I've heard that you've been doing some really interesting things in this time. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you've adapted?
Yeah, so obviously PT is all online at the moment. So I work for Military Mumma and PT through there. We went online with virtual classes and virtual PTs, and connecting via Instagram with people all over the world showed me really that we're all going through the same experiences. So connecting to people really, just taught me that we're all experiencing, and that feelings and emotions are really universal. And I wanted to get some of that down on paper, which led to a book that just came out.
That's amazing. I think it's amazing that you've what's your secret? How did you find the time with 5 children and owning a business to write a book?
Lots of late nights and early mornings, and bribery, 2-minute noodles, stuff like that.
Yeah, wonderful. And if people are interested in finding the book, where is the best place for them to access that?
Yeah, the link to purchase it is on my bio on Instagram. So I'm lela.fit on Instagram. That's LELLA.FIT. And the link to purchase the ebook is in my bio.
Wonderful. So that sounds like, would you say that business has slowed down for you, or it's sped up, or?
I'm a lot busier now, definitely. So being at home and cutting down travel time, you'd think that you'd have more time, but the virtual nature of the internet brings it all into your home. So everyone is everywhere all the time, and navigating everything new kind of puts you on the back burner a bit, back foot. So definitely super busy.
Yeah. I think a lot of us can relate to that like your day doesn't end when your home is your office. You sort of feel like you should always be available. Beck and Lou, obviously your office situation has changed a lot. You've got your beautiful gym behind there that you can't use at the moment. How are you adapting? How have you sort of changed things at the moment?
We are doing online training. So we are very lucky that Lou has a very good home gym. It's coming very handy. So we are running live classes every day or 5 days a week. So I live just around the corner from Lou, so I ride my bike up and we do a Facebook Live class at 6 a.m. and then we do a 9:30 Zoom class a couple of days a week as well to keep everybody active at home.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you feel like people's workouts are when they're at home as opposed to when it's one-on-one in person?
Yeah, I think like Gabby said, when it's in your own home, I think a lot of people do find it difficult when you've got kids and whatnot, and you can't just be in the space by yourself to do your workout. But most people are giving it a red hot crack, and take my hat off to you. If you get half the session done before your kids interrupt, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess it would have been, for all of you, there would have been a period of time when it wasn't clear what was going to happen. And then suddenly there were all these changes about what you're allowed to do and what you can't do at your workplace. What was that like to go through? Nikki, I'll ask you, because you've got lots of different businesses and lots of different roles. What was it like going through that experience of, oh no, there's suddenly things I have planned and events coming up. Now I have to change the way I do them.
Yeah, it was a very big shock. And sometimes I look back and I think, did I not see it coming, or did it just happen so fast? And I often refer to my week where it all happened as Hell Week, because it was just like every single email, phone call, every sort of correspondence I was having was just bad news after bad news after bad news. And then, after that week had sort of passed, then it was like, okay, how am I going to, turn this negative into a positive? How can I, take those steps forward to, move forward with my business? And it was very, very hard. But, you start looking at different avenues, different structures, and going whole virtual.
Yeah, and you've gone virtual for the Mother's Day Classic. Are you able to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so Mother's Day Classic, as soon as news started breaking that events wouldn't be happening, we were very clear that, we were still going to proceed in some point of view for the Mother's Day Classic. So every year the Mother's Day Classic raises that much money for the Breast Cancer Foundation. So it was something that we could not do this year. Otherwise it was going to create a massive impact on, research for breast cancer moving forward for the years to come. We sort of looked at avenues. So first, when the mass gatherings was 500, we thought, okay, we can still do events and stagger. And then when that dropped to then 100, then we're like, okay, we're going to look at different avenues. And this was all within a couple of days. And then, the mass gatherings was then dropped to 10 people. So we knew that, the thought of having a physical event was just not on the cards anymore. So the only way we could move forward was, to make it go onto an online platform and turn it to virtual. And it's actually opened up the event to a bigger sort of scale of people Australia-wide.
That's great. That's really awesome. Something I was wondering about actually in the health and fitness space is if there's a bit of a boom, because now people maybe who didn't have time before to do it are doing more fitness, even if they can't do it in person. Do you think that that's happening with the different online classes that are being provided? This is a question really for anyone.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a more conscious of people worrying about their health and well-being more than ever. Especially with COVID on everyone's mind, health is the next priority that everyone's thinking about. They want to stay healthy, they want to stay fit, they want to stay accountable. They don't want to get sick in these sort of climates. So, and I suppose, Gabby, Lou and Beck have all sort of experienced that with people wanting to keep active during this time.
Yeah. I guess another thing that's hard is future planning when you don't know how long something's going to be a certain way. And I think that the industry, the health and fitness industry, was really interesting in that, like you were saying, Nikki, it was very iterative. You were allowed to do a lot and then a little bit and then less and less. And one of the last things that they closed was personal training with larger groups. And now I think it's with just one person. In certain places in the country, you're allowed to do a little bit more or a little bit less. But do you guys sort of have a future plan as to how you'll plan to reopen, or do you just sort of have to wait and see what the government says?
I think for Beck and I, going online was actually really great, and that's something that we want to try and keep going, because we're fully aware that some people can't make class times. But yeah, like we said, we're in the gym today, trying to get it clean, in hope that one day soon, when they say we can reopen, we can reopen. So I think we're trying to make sure that we can keep both doors open, keep the online stuff cranking, as that is helping a lot. It's opened it up movement and exercise for a lot more people because it is online and they don't feel like they have to travel or it's not inconvenient for them. They can do it at any time. So we will definitely be keeping that on track. But yeah, our plan is to have the gym fully clean and ready for when we are one day allowed to open.
Yeah, wonderful. Gabby, I might ask you, I'm not sure if, and I guess this also applies to everyone, are you seeing a broader demographic of people reaching out? I guess that usually there's sort of certain age groups and certain lifestyles that probably take the most active approach in looking after their health and fitness, but are you seeing sort of young kids becoming more interested in older people and things like that?
I definitely have seen a lot more people reach out to me online and message me and say, I really just want to get out and get active. And people really valuing fresh air. I don't know if everyone's noticed, but the government says stay home, and now all the walking tracks are packed to the brim of people. Everyone's really noticing, we need to get out, we need fresh air, we need to move around. And I definitely high five that. And it's a broad range of people with a broad range of demographics and backgrounds. And yeah, I think it's really amazing that people are really balancing their mental health and their physical health and seeing the importance of both and how interconnected they are.
Yeah, and I think all of you guys have done an amazing job at adapting and being resilient and being able to, I guess, just carry on through this change, which has got such a big effect on people's lifestyles and work and everything. Thank you again so much for coming on and speaking with us, Gabby, Beck, Lou, and Nikki. We really appreciate your time, and yeah, it's great to hear about. It's so inspiring to hear about the wonderful things that people are doing and see what's being done in our local community. So thank you so much. And Pinti and I will be back after this break.
Welcome back to Edge Radio. You're live with Pinti and Mia, and we are the conversation starter where we're discussing the pandemic and how that has affected everybody's work-life balance. I'm very excited to be speaking with Sharon Russell, who is a local business owner here in Tassie of Sharon Space. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. You are an entrepreneur. You've worked in the health and wellness and skincare area for a number of years. And on top of all of this, you have 2 children. So right now you're Superwoman, juggling it all. How are you coping? How is Sharon Space coping during COVID-19?
That's actually a really good question to ask. I think that everyone that has a business is experiencing some sort of challenging times in some capacity, whether you have children or you don't. It's a different circumstance for everybody, and we're not all in the same boat. There's businesses out there that have had, brick and mortar type businesses that have had to close the doors for a period of time. Some of them are still closed. There's those businesses that are working from home and have an online presence and have been able to focus on that and still have that stream of income coming through. But for those that haven't had that, and that service orientated business is something that they rely on, they're the businesses that are really in a challenging time right now. So one of the things that I've actually noticed within myself over the past 20 years that I've actually been in business and an entrepreneur is that my mindset is everything to me. That is the only thing that I can control right now, and in any situation. You can't control everything that happens, but you can control the way that you react, whether you're proactive or reactive to every situation. And for me, I am, very grateful that I have a good mindset about the fact that, focusing on the things that I can control. And I am definitely a person that has my cup half full rather than half empty. So that's one thing that I think is really important in this time, is that getting clarity on what you can actually control.
when you first heard that there was a virus going around? What sort of did that mean for your business from then on?
I had to have a conversation with my fiance and we discussed what that would look like for us. One of the biggest things is that I had that open communication about what do you think this looks like? What do I think this looks like? How do I see it working so we can still move forward in a business, the children, the holidays, the homeschooling, and have that open communication was very important, and both of us buying into that same strategy and plan and knowing that it's actually of benefit for the whole family unit.
Have you found that COVID-19 has changed the structure of your work?
It has in a way that a lot more people are available, it would seem. My business has definitely improved. There has been it's not going backwards. It's absolutely given me the opportunity to really zone in on what I was already doing, but the things that I was doing in person, I've now actually put them online. So it was because we still know the same things as what we knew before COVID as far as what our services and skills were, but it's how to actually now put that into a way that we're still getting out to our customers and still delivering a message and a service. And online you can do that because you've got the skill set, you know what you know in your own business, but it's just filtering that through in a different platform.
That's amazing, and how fortunate that during this time your company is doing really well. And you mentioned earlier that you've got children, school-aged children. So how do you manage working from home and homeschooling?
So I am in a business space and I'm able to lock the door. It's close to home, and the agreement that I have with the kids and the fiance is I actually come to work, structured work, 3 days out of 7. So they've definitely got it pretty good. So I do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and my children are very intelligent to the fact that they believe nobody works on a weekend, so weekends don't count. So I'm in here 3 days a week with structure. The days that I'm at home, one thing I have learned over the years, so I've been in business as a independent person with no commitments with children. I have been in a business from a marriage situation, also from a not marriage situation to now a partner and children. So I've had all types of different situations, but one thing that I do know is that when you play, when you work.
And has the children's school been very supportive of offering supportive material and things like that? You're still communicating with them?
Absolutely. I actually had the school chaplain just ring me today and just check in with us, living where we do. And I'm a huge advocate of, small community schooling, and, it's just a fantastic school. So they've been very hands-on with that. But I think that comes back to us as parents as well, is that we have been forthcoming in asking for information if we're not sure, and just checking in with other parents as well. We've had FaceTime with, other kids, and the kids have been mailing colouring ins and stickers to other children. So we've tried to have that communication still, with the other kids. But our children doing homeschooling at home, I'm a little bit different with what I consider to be homeschooling. So the days that I'm not working, my homeschooling is getting them in the kitchen to cook with me. It's going for a bushwalk. It's down on the beach and looking at things, exploring things, counting things, going outside, throwing the ball, lighting the fire, lighting the barbecue, having life experiences. And where I'm at work, my fiance is doing the paper version of the schoolwork, so I get the really good stuff.
If for some reason your business wasn't doing so well, do you feel well protected by the government's numerous amount of stimulus packages?
I think so. My personal opinion is that, we are in great hands, and I would not want to have any of their jobs right now. I can assure you of that. I think that they're doing the best with what they know at the time and have our best interests at heart.
What are your future plans, and has COVID-19 shifted the way that you see the future of your business?
This is probably the best question that could be asked, because One of the things that I think we try to do as business owners is we try to do it all. And it's almost impossible. I think it's important to pick and choose a few things that work for you and just really get good at those things that, you know, bring you customers, repeat business, whatever that looks like for you. If it's showing up to a networking organisation to create connections, whatever that looks like for you, don't try and do everything and be everything to everyone, because you can't actually be number one at everything. So one of the things that this has actually taught me is that what I'm doing online is I would do these similar things in person. So what I will be doing once we can actually get together in groups is I'll be doing them in person, but then Zooming them and living them through to my client group, so I can still have the online groups that I have going and the different things that everyone's participating in right now, but I'll be doing one thing, but it'll be catering for both types of people. So just a small shift like that is going to save the most amazing amount of time for me, just doing that one thing.
Some amazing tips there as well. Sharon, you're doing an amazing job working and also homeschooling. I think, you know, it's quite a lot for anybody to be going through right now. I hope you're well, and I hope that your business continues on that incline in its success. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back after this short break where we take a look at the frontline workers and the essential workers who are being worked to the core, and are they being taken care of enough?
Welcome back to the Conversation Starter on Edge Radio. I'm Mia.
And I'm Pinti.
And we've been talking about work in the time of coronavirus. So talking about how it's affected people's employment, how they're altering the way they work. And of course, a big thing as well is how for some people this is an extra busy time and a time when they're at more risk and they're working in different circumstances to what they usually would be, because they are our frontline workers and our essential workers that are working out there in the community, the ones that are really fighting coronavirus directly in places like hospitals, aged care facilities, the people in the schools as well that, you know, have to be around large groups of people. Pinti, I know that you've been looking into frontline workers.
Doing a little bit of research into this as to how we're actually taking care of our frontline workers, because I think from the medical staff who are, as you say, been working non-stop, to our grocery store employees who are essential with, you know, all of our basic everyday needs, I was wondering whether we are in fact taking as good a care of them as we should be. I know right at the beginning of this there were a lot of health concerns for our medical professionals because there wasn't enough PPE, protective gear and stuff like that. What I've found online, which has been really sort of uplifting, is that the communities have taken it upon themselves to basically sew and make makeshift protective gear and scrubs and uniforms, and there's a whole heap of things. If you don't know, there's on Facebook there's this Adopt a Healthcare Worker, which I've been a part of for the last week, just checking in to see just what kind of support there is for our essential workers. If you yourself have some time to cook a meal or babysit someone's children, or, you know, all of these people that are going out basically to protect us and keep us safe, you know, they've got their own livelihoods that they're giving up, and so I found that this was a fantastic way just to check in on them, because being a parent myself, I can't imagine being in a workplace where at this particular time where you want to just think about yourself and your family and protect your little ones or your bubble of people around you, when that kind of weight of the world is on your shoulders and you have to go out and work because basically you feel that pressure of the world relies on you right now. It's affected everybody in the work, but those people who are in who are frontline workers and essential workers, their lives in this current time period, I feel like they're probably being pushed to the limit, and I hope that when we do come out of this at the other end, I read an interesting article which talked about how some of our current essential workers, they've never really been given the credit that they've always deserved. So grocery store workers or delivery drivers, where we've often previously taken them for granted or seen that as not a valuable position, they're all sort of, we need them right now. And I'm hoping that when we're all out of this, we continue to remember and be grateful for all the work that they do on a daily basis.
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting that some of the people that we probably worship the most, our celebrities and our sporting heroes and our artists, are the ones that were first out of work. And although we love and appreciate what they do and they get paid so much, they're not the ones that are essential in this time. So like you say, the grocery store workers, the delivery people, the people driving trucks, often probably don't feel very glorified or thanked in their jobs, but they're the ones that we really rely on to keep things going and to provide us what we need. So as well as our teachers, that many of them are teaching online now or providing packages, and the ones that are also teaching in the schools and providing that service of care for children that need to be in the class. So in my situation, I'm working from home, as is the large majority of the people I work with. I work normally in an office environment, and obviously within a team of people, working from home affects us all differently. For those of us that live, I guess, like without a family or are alone during the day, is quite socially isolating, and like it's quite lonely being alone all day when you're used to going to the office. And they are concerned, there's concern sort of happening on a wider scale about the impacts that has for people. They're saying that I read a report that said if you work more than 2.5 days from home on a regular basis, that's when it can start being a negative mental impact for a sort of noticeable portion of your workplace, because a lot of people do rely on the interaction they get from work as some of their main social interaction in the week, especially if they don't have strong social networks outside of their workplace. It's different challenges for everyone, and I think there's a lot of good that workplaces are trying to do. In my experience, they're acknowledging that we're not working from home by choice. We're trying to work from home as best we can during a pandemic. But certainly, there's lots of things I think people can do if they are in that situation. And there are lots of us in that situation. There's millions of people who have been forced to work from home that aren't used to it. But things like trying to separate your work life and your personal life.
I wanted to ask what I suppose is the biggest struggle that you find working from home now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and it would depend a lot on your workplace, I guess, and the expectations you have, but I'm lucky to work at a workplace where and it's partially the position that I'm in and the level of the position I'm in, but I feel like I clock on and I clock off in my normal week, and I'm not expected to be answering phone calls on the weekend or, available at nighttime. Like, I'm sort of meant to work normally within certain hours, and I'm available, within that time frame. But outside of that, there's no expectation I would be. It's very hard when you're not in the office to feel like that you've done your day work, because you don't sort of have that like sitting in the office chair. Maybe you've had some conversations with someone and stuff like that, but you've still contributed to the day, and yes, like I can tick, I've done my 8 hours or whatever it is. So even though you're still attending meetings on Zoom, or you're still having phone calls, or you're still replying to emails, because you can't see something tangible that you've done necessarily with your time, and you also haven't traveled to and from work, you kind of get lots of mind tricks about whether or not you've been productive enough. You might feel like you have to prove your productivity and show people, oh, look, I'm doing stuff.
Are you still required to stick to the same sort of turnover times if you're producing work and things like that?
Yeah, like we try to. So there is an expectation, I suppose, that you try to as much as you can, and it does depend on your situation. I will always try and clock on by 9, the same as I would if I was working in the office, and I try and work until our core hours are that you have to do a certain number of hours in the day, but basically you need to be available generally between 10 and 4, but I try to make sure I'm always available between 9 and 4, and sometimes that extends later. And then if it hasn't been enough hours in my day, I might do some work in the evening, or I might start earlier. I might start at 7. Every day is a bit different. And I've actually probably ended up doing more hours than I would if I was working in the office, because when your bedroom's just there and your office is just here, it's hard to feel like you have a good excuse to not do more.
I was gonna say, if you have to clock on for Zoom meetings and things like that, you have to still get dressed. You can't just roll around in a dressing gown.
No, and it is a weird feeling because you sort of want to, and it can be hard to find the same motivation. You know, I was in a Zoom meeting with all my coworkers the other day, and I said, "Hey, who's wearing slippers?" And we were all wearing slippers. So we were all like, "Here's my slippers." It's one of the perks, I guess, that you can wear what you want on your feet, and you do, like, you make up some time that you would normally have as a commute. A lot of friends who are in a similar situation to me, we've said we don't move anywhere near as much. We sit in the same spot much more when we work from home than when we work in the office, because in the office you walk around the office, you have meetings, you know, you walk to different floors, you go to the kitchen, which might be 50 meters away. When you're at home, your kitchen is 2 or 3 meters away. At the end of the day, you just feel like a slug or a sloth. So it certainly can take its toll on your mental health, and you need to, I guess, clock in and keep on top of it.
Post-COVID, sort of, do you think this is going to change the structure of your particular work in the future?
I think it will be really, it will be a harder argument for large workplaces to say that people can't at least have more flexibility than maybe they currently feel like they do for things like caring. So I think if people have young children and they feel like they can be productive at home, this is a time when I guess it will either disprove or prove that they can be. So if people can show like that they can do a fantastic job of still working while being at home, I think it'll be very hard for their employers to argue strongly against them doing that when needed. And especially for things like if someone has a sniffle, I don't think the expectation will anymore be that you either come in and soldier through it or that you have sick leave. I think the expectation will start to become work from home. Yeah. So, you know, which is sort of somewhere in the middle, because it's kind of nice in a way that people can go, I'm a little bit sick, I get the day off. I think there'll be an expectation that you work from home more so when that's the case. But you'll also not, you know, you won't be going in and soldering in with a sniffle.
And, you know, as we were talking about earlier, COVID has impacted and affected everybody in terms of their work. So I think what's interesting is also how much we now value work. How important it is, and not just through the financial side of it, because as we were talking about throughout the show, is that there is stimulus packages and the government is doing its best to take care of everybody financially now, but also that sort of social interaction side of work as well. We are going to have to wrap up for tonight's show, but join us next week. We're going to be talking more about isolation and how to take care of your mental health. We'll be back next week. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.